Hello and welcome to the Online College of Coding video tutorial series on Plasma Possum Beginner. I'm your host, Daniel. In this video, we'll be going through the steps of piecing together Plasma Possum. Before you start this project, it's recommended that you've watched the Intro to Unity and Beginning Programming Concepts videos. With that said, let's get started. So to kick things off, open Unity and within the launcher that opens, select New. Name your project, your name, Plasma Possum Beginner, and set your location to a safe and easy to remember location. Even though we are technically building a 2D game, we're going to use the 3D setting. And to finish it off, click on Create Project. For this project, I'll be using the 2x3 layout option. With the Project tab set to 1 column layout, and the Game tab dragged up next to the Scene tab. So to begin, download and open the Plasma Possum Beginner asset package. After a second or two, you'll be presented with the import window. Make sure everything is ticked on and click Import. This will import all the assets required to build this project into your Project tab. Before we begin adding our prefab objects into the scene, first, we're going to want to set up our layers. Add layers 8 to 18, which can be found in the inspector screenshot in the document. Every single object can belong to one layer. Layers are user-created categories, and by using the layer collision matrix, we can define which layers can and can't touch/collide with each other. Each object, by default, belongs to the default layer. There is a maximum of 32 layers, and layers 0 to 7 are reserved for Unity and cannot be changed. We now need to update our layer collision matrix and tell our project which layers can interact with each other. Modify your matrix to look like the layer collision matrix diagram found on page 2 in the document. While still in the physics settings, we need to ensure that the option Queries Hit Triggers is off. Now add the Singleton Spawners prefab. This takes care of our UI and audio, along with some other features. With those things out of the way, now we can start designing our actual level. The first object that we'll add will be the background prefab. You can rotate the scene camera by holding down right click, and at the same time, you can move the camera with the WASD and Q and E keys. The next prefab that we'll add will be the death zone. Set its position to 0, -22, 0. Next, we'll add the level wall prefab, twice. Set both of their positions to 0, 0, 0, and set one of its rotations to 0, 0, 0. Next, we're going to add the dummy camera prefab. Set its location to 0, 0, 0, and then lock the Inspector tab by clicking on the little padlock icon in the top right of the inspector. With the inspector locked on the dummy camera, select and drag the two level wall prefabs to the either side of the camera preview window. Unlock the inspector tab when you're finished. If you haven't figured it out already, we use the dummy camera for the preview window. It allows us to position the two walls nice and easily, but the preview window is only available when the camera object is selected. Thus why we have to lock the inspector on the camera. Now it's time to add our platform prefabs as needed for our level. Spend some time moving them around how you would like. You can shorten a platform via moving the start and end child objects attached to the main platform object in the hierarchy. Next, we'll add the wall prefab. You can use this object to help in your level design. Add as many as your level needs. With an object selected in the hierarchy, you can use Ctrl D to duplicate the object. Alternatively, you can right-click on the object and select Duplicate. Next, we'll add the ladder prefab. Use this object to help design your level. The next object that we'll add will be the player spawner prefab. This object will spawn your player at that location when the game begins. Next, add the Gumnut Blossom spawner prefab. This object spawns the blossom when the game begins. The blossom is the object that we have to collect to finish the level and move on to the next one. Now add the point spawner prefab to your project. The point spawner prefab will spawn a berry at that location when the game begins. A berry gives you 500 points when collected. Next, we'll add the power-up Plasma Spawner prefab. This will spawn a Plasma power-up in that location. While under the effects of this power-up, you'll have the ability to jump a second time while in air to perform the bounce attack, which will crush any jellies or crabs beneath you. Now add the Crocodile prefab. The croc is the one constantly shooting jellies at you. You can add more than one croc if you like, but be careful not to make your level too hard. Next, add the crab jelly spawner and the crab spawner prefabs. Crab jellies are just normal jellies. However, when they hit a crab hole, they change into a crab. A crab spawner turns into a single crab when the game starts. Now add the crab hole prefab. Remember, crab holes will take in any crab jellies and turn them into crabs. And now finally, add any death spike prefabs you would like. There are 5 different types of spikes to choose from, and these objects will kill the player if he or she runs into it, but they do not obstruct crabs or jellies. Now it's time to playtest your level. The chances are that the level you've built will have some issues, so take some time to correct these issues and to change things up to make it easier or harder, depending on what level you're trying to create. A few notes to remember: having too many death spikes can make your level impossible or too hard to finish. Try and strike a balance between challenging and finishable. Having a ladder too close to a wall can prevent a jelly from continuing to roll. And also, there is a limit to the amount of jellies and crabs you can have on screen at any one time. This can be changed in the Difficulty Manager prefab object. Once you've designed your level, it's time to save your level and give it a name. You will find the Save Scene option under the File menu. Now finally, the next step is to add it into the Build settings. You do this via navigating to File, Build Settings. The Build Settings window presents you with a list of scenes included in the project. The order of the scenes matters as the game starts at the top and finishes at the end. You can place as many scenes in the list as you have created and order them any way you wish. Just make sure the menu scene is always at the top. You can click the Add Open Scenes button to add the scene you currently have open into the Build settings. Alternatively, you can drag the scene files directly from your Project tab straight into the Build settings window. To complete our project, we'll compile our entire project down into an executable file. This gives us the ability to share our project without the other person needing a copy of Unity on their computer. Click the Build button in the Build settings window. Then, select a location to place your files and then select Save. Unity will generate the exe file along with the folder full of files required for the game. It's these 2 items that you have to give to somebody for them to be able to play your game. Congratulations, you've completed the Plasma Possum beginner tutorial. If you've done everything right, you should now have a fully functioning game with the level that you've created. Feel free to create any more levels that you'd like, and to share them with your friends.